It is a bright, hot day in the national capital, and Shravan continues to be with us from Sansad Chowk. I'm going to request you, Shravan, to stay on. I'm going to come to you in just a bit. Quick question with Major Arya. Major Arya, Major Sivat spoke about infrastructure. Now, that's been a key hallmark of this government. We've seen it in all spheres, whether it is infrastructure in terms of roads, rail services, or infrastructure that's been built specifically in the Northeast. But apart from that, the armed forces reforms have spanned everything, whether it's equipment or it's, the cantonment boards that essentially the government was looking to disband, or various other areas like the Agniveer scheme. Your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely, Nupur. I think there has been a 360-degree change in the way the government is looking at the armed forces. It is not just the Agniveer. It is not just, it is not just about, the new weapons and equipment. There is a holistic change. For example, you see a lot more involvement of senior military brass in what we know as military diplomacy, right? It is not that the chiefs have started going outside just now. The chiefs of the armed forces have been going out forever, for a very long time. But today, the parameters are different. The way they are looking at it is different. So when you speak to, let us say, the army chief of Saudi Arabia, there is something else that is happening. Now, there is army-to-army interaction, not just limited to training. There is actually military diplomacy happening. And beyond it, if you look at the national security paradigm, beyond simply military, but national security paradigm, you always see whenever the Prime Minister is on a visit, on his right hand, if you see Dr. Jaishankar, on his left hand, you will always see Mr. Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor. So this entire thing of national security, how India approaches a situation, right? And armed forces are a very, very integral and extremely important part of the national security apparatus of this country. So it is happening in a certain manner where all the wheels of the state or all the wheels of the national security are being put into motion. Yes, Agniveer is very important. New weapons and equipment is important. This cantonment board issue that you mentioned, very important. And Make in India, extremely important. This is one of the primary learnings from the Russia-Ukraine war, that we cannot be dependent on our outside power for weapons and equipment. What happens if we are in a protracted conflict? So Make in India is extremely important, but also the way the armed forces are now being projected, more exposure is being given at all levels, and people here in the armed forces are learning about the world. This used to happen earlier also. This is not to say that this has started under Prime Minister Modi's regime. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that now this has happened 10x. That is what I'm saying. It's really, really improved.
Right. Absolutely. I'm going to go across to Shravan right now. Shravan, today's speech spanned about 90 minutes. It was as much a forward-looking speech where the Prime Minister spoke about his government's achievements, also, in a sense, laying down the framework for, the next 1,000 years. He did mention that. But politically, Shravan, what were the takeaways that you would look at as a journalist? He did, talk politics to a large part of that speech.
Well, in fact, Nupur, there is always a pattern to what the Prime Minister essentially has to say. And from the ramparts of the Red Fort, what we have seen is that there is a divergence from his predecessors. He's essentially addressed the nation with a very forward-looking, as you rightly pointed out, a forward-looking approach. What is it that the nation can perhaps see building over the next couple of months or couple of years? In fact, this time he goes a step ahead, brings a very interesting narrative that General K.K. Sinha was also pointing out, that what India has suffered in the past, invaded by many in the past, taken away the greatest of talents from this country. But now what is essentially happening is that there is an effort of nation building. And perhaps, General K.K. Sinha, you would agree, in the last 9 years, what the Prime Minister has essentially been speaking about, one thing that really stands out from every speech of the Prime Minister is about the effort of nation building.